Hey guys, my name is RyanCentral and welcome to HitScan. We got to play Yoru early and here is a video going over all of his abilities, the interactions with other utility within the game, and just myth busting a couple of questions that you probably have. If we missed some, let us know in the comments below. We'll get straight into it because there's a lot of interactions to test. The first ability is called Fakeout. It costs 100 credits and you can get 2 charges total. You equip an echo that mimics footsteps, and there are 2 versions of this ability. The first is where, after pressing the C button, you can either left click, which just sends these steps forwards. They keep running for 10 seconds maximum, or will stop if you run it into a wall. In some cases, if you angle it a certain way, like you're seeing on screen, it does try to walk along the wall, but it can be pretty buggy. Your safest bet is to throw it out into open spaces like this and just let it roam free. From the perspective of the Yoru player, the steps sound squelchy.
Decoy.
So I wanted to include the audio of what it sounds like from the enemy's perspective. It sounds very realistic, like they're real steps, but there is a distinct difference between these fake steps and normal ones. Here's normal running. It's going to be very difficult to do in the heat of the moment, but there is the sound of the clothes moving as the agent is running, which you don't necessarily have with the fake footsteps. Here's them back to back. So there is potential for you to be able to hear if they are fake footsteps, but it's not likely. The second version of this ability is where you could just place it down on the ground, much like a Cypher cyber cage. These will last indefinitely, and from maximum distance, you can move away even looking through walls and fire them off whenever. So for example, let's say that this is B main on bind, you're over on A, which is somewhere over here. You'll be able to set these off, maybe bait a bit of a rotation and go and hit the other side that you're looking to hit. The thing about these abilities as well is that the enemies can see that you've placed them if they do get close. So be careful where you place them, because if they push down here and see that you've put them here, they might be able to guess that you're going to be hitting the other side. So something that you need to be careful of. There's absolutely nothing stopping you from putting your 2 charges down or throwing them at the same point. Maybe getting a Sova to throw in a recon dart as you're executing onto a site to really sell that bait is going to be the nightmare of a lot of different teams for sure. For the fake out ability, the general rule of thumb is that the steps cannot be killed or destroyed, but it does trigger some forms of utility. For example, mollies, snakebite, those kind of things won't do anything to stop the steps, and even stuns like breach, for example, won't slow it down by any stretch. When it comes to Cypher utility, tripwires do get triggered by using the fake out ability. It will trip them like a normal person would trip a tripwire. The camera can also see these steps clear as day, but the camera can't tag these steps. In regards to other stuff with Cypher, the cyber cage sound is triggered when the fake out ability goes through them, like any normal ability or person would. And neural theft doesn't show the steps or where they're placed, for example. For Killjoy utility, the turret actually does detect the steps. It tries to shoot them, but of course they can't be killed, so it just goes off a little bit. It's the same with Alarm Bot, it does detect the steps and will explode, so it's a really good ability just to clear some of that defensive utility, such as tripwires or an Alarm Bot. Speaking of bots, Raze's Boombot also will spot these steps and explode, so it is a great ability to just clear out some of that aggressive utility again. Sage Wall doesn't stop the steps, I didn't think it would, it was just worth testing. But when the slow orb comes out, the steps are slowed, and the fake out actually sounds like a normal person's steps too. I don't think that's inherently useful. If you hear somebody walking through a slow orb and it sounds like a player, it might not be. It's just worth knowing. Does Sky Seeker ultimate chase after steps at all? No, and the recon bolt from Silver also doesn't pick up anything. The second ability is Blindside. You have 2 charges of this, each costing 200 credits. It's a flash, it's Yoru's entry ability more than anything, but a couple of things about this ability are worth noting. The key thing about this flash is it needs to make contact with an object for it to actually explode as a flash like you're seeing. If I throw it up into the air like this, if it doesn't connect to any form of surface, it won't detonate. It will just dissolve in the air. So you need to be able to bounce it off a wall, bounce it off the ground, even bouncing it off enemy or allied players will get this flash to expand and explode. The cool thing about this is that the enemy team cannot see this flash until it connects with a surface. So if I throw it up here, the enemy team won't be able to see it. You're seeing it on screen now, for example, where Miska on the enemy team is throwing hundreds of different flashes, but I don't get to see them until they hit a wall or a floor, any form of surface. Then you have a couple of seconds to look away quickly before it actually flashes you. So there is a bit of counterplay, but it's a very sneaky ability, much like everything else that Yoru has available to him. In regards to interactions with this ability, it's fairly standard with the other flashes in the game. It's an infinite range. You can be flashed from a very large distance, but of course there is a drop-off effect to this, so you don't necessarily need to worry too much about that. The only thing to be conscious of, I suppose, is if I throw it here, it does have a bit of a lob effect similar to Viper's Snakebite, where it does fire a little bit higher than your reticle, as you're sort of seeing. It still means that you can have these like average Jonas lineups down the line, but from my experience with playing and playing with other people on Yoru, it can be a little bit random with how it bounces off certain objects. For example, like that. That's going to happen a lot with this agent. Yoru's third and final normal ability is Gatecrash. This is his signature ability, and much like the other typical duelists, your Raze, your Jet, your Phoenix, this ability, once you use it, gets used up, but if I then go get 2 kills, that ability will reset, similar to Phoenix's Hot Hands, Jet's Dash, Raze's Paint Shell. It's free to get, you get it every single time you start a round. There are 2 ways that this ability can be used. The first is by just the normal primary fire. You fire it forwards, it travels pretty much at walking speed, and it will continue to go forward up until it reaches a wall. Then it's going to stop in its place, or at least try to do like that, for example, where it will continue to move forwards. But then it will usually get stuck on a wall like this, and the duration is 20 seconds. It will continue to travel up until it reaches a wall, so I can fire it out here, it will go for the teleport, and most likely will hit the wall on the other side. But the duration of this is 20 seconds. If I leave it and the timer runs out, I won't obviously be able to teleport there. This ability can't be used to try to get onto the high ground. You can't teleport up here, for example, like an Omen's teleport ability. It will just always go horizontal. But also when it comes to teleporting down to places, it can be very awkward. Like if you place it here, it's going to get stuck. There will be some cases where you will be able to place it onto the low ground like this, but for example on Bind Hookah, if you try to do this, you're putting yourself in a very dangerous position. So you can easily be caught out basically messing around trying to teleport to the low ground, for example. It doesn't go over gaps, so you can't teleport from one high ledge to another, say for example on Icebox. Before we talk about what makes this ability super strong, let's go over the secondary fire where instead of firing it forward, you place it on the ground. It has the same duration and you could effectively use it like a run it back up from Phoenix. You're running through, getting a couple of kills, you take a little bit of damage, you see an enemy, you can just teleport back to safety. It's just a really good way of making sure that you're safe, or using it to lurk one spot, throwing it here, getting some steps, using that to go that way. You sort of go with it to sell the bait, and then, whoops, got him, you're moving over to this side of the map, as an example. If you're not sold on this ability or think that it's a bit too obvious, from an enemy's perspective, you have to be very close to the orb to actually see it. This is the range that you have to be to see the orb very close and personal. If that seems a bit too strong, this is the range of how far away you need to be to hear the orb when it's being placed or when it travels past you. If you hear the sound effect, you know that there is an orb nearby, so you are going to be aware that shenanigans are about to go down. You can kill it or maybe wait for him to teleport back, that you can get a very cheeky kill on him. Similar to Omen's ult teleport, right? You could just sort of wait there, bait him out and get a frag. And much like Omen's teleport, These orbs can be destroyed by the enemy, not only with guns, but with utilities, with ultimates, and an enemy doesn't need to see the orb to destroy it. If they just spray and pray in the right general area, the orb will be destroyed, so do bear that in mind. Another key thing that you need to be careful of is there is a little bit of a couple of seconds maybe where as soon as you teleport you won't be able to get your gun out instantly. So if you try to aggressively teleport into the face of an enemy, they will most likely win that duel 9 times out of 10 unless they're really bad or just don't see where you teleport. Speaking of the actual teleport activation, it is pretty loud. The enemies will most likely hear that you've teleported, and this is the range of how far away an enemy needs to be before they don't hear the teleport ability being used. So you get a little bit of leeway as the aggressor using this orb to sneak past people, but as soon as you press that ability again and teleport to that spot, that audio cue is going to be super loud and the enemy team will know that you've done something sneaky. Bear that in mind, gold players that are going to do super aggressive stuff, it isn't going to go that way. For Gatecrash, it's almost the opposite of the Fakeout ability. The orb can be destroyed by Aftershock, by all of the different mollies, by abilities like Paint Shells, Shock Darts, Snakebite. The only ability that was surprised it didn't kill it was Sky's Trailblazer, because the Tiger does a little bit of damage but not enough to actually kill the orb. But the difference between Fakeout is that the orb isn't stopped by all the forms of utility that stop the steps. For example, a breach stun doesn't slow the orb, tripwires don't trip up the orb, the camera can see the orb but only when it's close, and even then the camera can't tag the ability. Cybercage does play the same noise as per usual, Killjoy's turret doesn't pick up the orb, Killjoy's alarm bot doesn't detect the orb, Razor's boombot doesn't spot the orb, but Sage's wall stops it, or at least it goes into the wall until it gets stuck or whatever. The interesting thing about Sage, however, is the fact that the Gatecrash ability is slowed when it goes into a Sage's slow orb, and it also makes sound, unlike any of the other abilities. So Sage is actually pretty strong in a 1v1 against Yoru, like her utility is really good at shutting him down, worth discussing another day potentially. Do the Seekers chase after the orb? No, they will just chase after you, and they will continue to chase after you, even if you use the orb to teleport away a decent distance. One of the cool things to Mythbust is whether using the Gatecrash teleport will cleanse any CC effects. If you're stunned by Breach, for example, will you then teleport into your orb, clean that effect? The answer is no. It doesn't clean being stunned, it doesn't clean a Cypher's camera tag, it doesn't clean a Sky's Trailblazer stun, and also Hunter's Fury, if it connects onto you and shows your position, it will do that even if you teleport. So it's more of a timing thing, but be very careful on when you use your teleport because the Silver might still see where you end up, so do bear that in mind. And finally, the ultimate is Dimensional Drift. This is where you equip a mask, you put it on, you become invisible, you become invulnerable to any form of damage and CC, and also you make no noise, at least not really. You'll notice that when you use the mask, you will see this little radius around you. If an enemy stands in that radius, they will see you, they will hear you, they will have an effect on the screen showing you that there is a Yoru nearby. So you really want to be actually trying to sneak around, get around an enemy if you can with this range, because otherwise they won't have a clue that you're anywhere nearby. If an enemy does go into that radius, you will be visible for a couple of seconds after you leave it, so do be careful. Whilst you can't take any form of damage or be slowed or tripped up by a tripwire or spotted by a turret at range, you'll notice that you're not only nearsighted, but you can't draw a weapon or use any other form of abilities whilst in this mode. And you are also very much at risk, much like the teleport, when you come out of the ultimate, meaning that if somebody spots you as you're doing that, you're easy dinner for them. You also run a little bit faster as well, so it's a great scouting tool or a great way to sneak into the backline of the enemies. I can't wait to see Get Right play this agent, in all honesty. And the ultimate lasts about 9 seconds, but you can cancel it at any point if you want to. If you just want to hop out, maybe use it to dodge an ultimate. Say, for example, a Killjoy lockdown comes out. Last second, you just put it on, lockdown comes through, you're instantly out and ready to fight again. That's certainly a scenario that can be used. But what about all of the other abilities and ultimates how do they interact with this ult? Or in most cases, how does it not interact with this ultimate? First of all, can you be stunned by any of Breach's utility? The ultimate or his fault line? The answer is no. Can you be blinded whilst you're in the ult by a Breach, a Phoenix, whoever? The answer is yes, but there are a few examples where that changes, so we'll go over that. Can you use your ult to dodge other ultimates like Orbital Strike, Hunter's Fury? The answer is yes, and you won't give up any information from Hunter's Fury either. If you're in your ultimate, do you trip Cypher wires? The answer is no. Does the camera see the ultimate? Yes, but only when you're close. It looks exactly the same as it would do if you were a person looking at a Yoru in his vicinity. Can you tag the ultimate? No, you can't. If you get tagged by a Cypher's camera and you use your ultimate, does it cleanse the camera tag away? No, it doesn't. It doesn't pulse your position whilst you're in your ultimate, but as soon as you come out, you will start pulsing again. Also, you can't remove the tag whilst you're in your ultimate. Definitely be careful of that one. Does Neural Theft show your ultimate? Not really, but it does show the little connection when the ultimate goes off. It doesn't pulse your position, so the answer is not really, but it does freak out a little bit, if that makes sense. Does the turret detect the ultimate? Yes, if you're in its vicinity and you get close. Does Killjoy's alarm bot detect the ultimate? Exactly the same. If you go into that radius, it will go off and detect you. Does Lockdown detain you whilst you're in your ult form? The answer is no. You don't get detained at all, which I think is nice counterplay. Does Omen's paranoia blind you whilst you're in your ultimate? The answer is actually no, which was surprising. You don't get nearsighted when you're in ult, but bear in mind that you are a little bit nearsighted anyway when you're in this ult form, so that's probably why. Does Reyna's Leer impact you whilst you're in your ultimate? The answer is yes, and you can't destroy it either because you can't pick out a gun, so Reyna's Leer is actually pretty good against shutting down Yoru to an extent. Is Yoru's ult slowed by a Sage's Slow Orb? No, not at all. Does Sky's Seeker still chase you whilst you're in ult form? Yes, and it will connect and nearsight you. Nothing can stop Sky's ultimate. It is terrifying. Can Silver's Aldron still see you in the ultimate? The same as the Cypher camera, only when you're close, but it can't tag you, much like the camera. Can the Recon Bolt hit you, as in connect onto you, whilst you're in your ult form? No, it just passes through as if you're not there. Can the Recon Bolt hit you before you go into ult form and pulse your position and the position of others? It will attach to you, but it won't show any information about where you are. I don't know whether it shows the position of your teammates. I'm assuming not likely, and even if it does, that is a scenario that will most likely happen 1 in a million times, so hard to really say for certain. Does Hunter's Fury do damage in your ult? No, we went over that. It also doesn't show your position. And does Viper's Pit do anything to you whilst you're in your ult? No, it just makes things very dark. So it's a great way of trying to get some information if you have to pass through it. Whilst you're in ult form, can an enemy Yoru that is also in ult form see you, and can you see them? The answer is yes. If you stand in the radius, you can see each other, and it's a nice little bit of counterplay if you want to try and work out where an enemy Yoru might be heading on the attack, for example. And finally, one that we missed getting gameplay for, but did check it out in-game. Does Cypher's Cyber Cage trigger the sound if you run through it whilst you're in ult form? The answer is yes. The final thing that I wanted to myth bust was how does the bind teleporters interact with all of the different forms of utility. We'll put the teleporter here, and let's see what the steps sound like. Sounds just like a normal ability, but it will also open up the doors, as we can see as we go through. So if there's an enemy hiding in here, you could use the steps to open it up and make them susceptible to being taken out. Obviously, you could use the teleporters to do this, but what does it sound like when you put it through? Again, like a bit of utility. But of course, you can teleport in, surprise and shock people, and make those 500 IQ plays. The flashes will interact in the same way as every other flash, so you could probably throw it out. I wonder if the doors will open at the same time. And then obviously you've got the ultimate.
I'll handle this.
Makes the same effect as a normal player would when jumping through. So if you wanted to know how the bind teleporters interact with all of Yoru's kit, that's how. And that's it for this time. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you for watching to the end of this video too. Like and subscribe, it would be super appreciated if you did enjoy this video, and if we did miss some of the interactions, let us know in the comments below. Plenty more content coming out on the channel on the new agent and all of the new content within episode 2, So be sure not to miss that. Take care. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.